Watching Trevor Lawrence transform into a great quarterback means that we all had to change the way that we watched him and cut out some of the foolishness. I'll tell you why on Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It is, in fact, your team every day here on Locked On Jaguars. We thank you for making us your first listen. Joining us here on the podcast, which is a part of the Locked On NFL Network, which is a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is the #1 sports podcast network. Glad to have you here. Shout out to the everydayers who join us each and every day to watch or listen to the show. In fact, wherever you watch or listen, make sure you tap in if you're new here each and every day so you do not miss an episode like the one you're either watching or listening to right now that is sponsored by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. All right. Let me give you a little quick outline of where we're going. Watching Trevor change in real time, that's where we'll start. In the middle, the way we watch Trevor has changed. That's very, very important. And I'll tell you why change is good. Change is good. Kind of like that dude said in Wolf of Wall Street, greed is good. The Jaguars need to be greedy right now because they're on the precipice of making the playoffs. And not only that, winning the AFC South. And not only that, maybe even getting the #2 seed. Or if the Patriots stumble a little bit, the Jags may even creep up to get home field advantage if they went out and other teams handle some business. But how do we get here? When things were going bad, outside of Doug Peterson and Press Taylor, who got a lot of the blame, maybe rightfully so, and Trent Baalke, the one constant point of trepidation, I guess is the word, or pause, has been Trevor Lawrence. And he's been very, very polarizing, and there's been a lot of discussion. Some of the discussion was very, very difficult to have, and that's because if you were being honest or whatever, someone called you a hater of Trevor Lawrence instead of a lover of what you saw. One thing about, at least with this podcast, is I'm not emotional. So I tell you how I see it. I got a track record of doing that for almost 3 decades and even longer than that, just who I am, period. So I try to look at things and say what they are basically on what they're perceived to be, right? A couple of weeks ago, we were doing a crossover episode with the Cardinals and Alex Clancy, who I don't talk to because the Jaguars don't pay. We talk offline, but the Jaguars don't really play the Cardinals often. And we were talking about the careers of both Kyler Murray and Trevor Lawrence. And he basically asked me a question, an overall question of, look, man, how and what is it with him? I know what's going on with Kyler, but what's going on with Trevor? And the thing that people talked about all the time with Trevor was his propensity to turn the ball over. I mean, at one point, he led the league since he's been in the league in turnovers. He still might, but he's not turning the ball over now, right? But those things, those statistics, and the fact that they lost more than they won, and this is his 5th year. It looked like he's going to the playoffs for the second time in 5 years, and this will be the 3rd time he's already guaranteed to have a winning record. So have things really been as bad as you think they've been? First of all, before you say he's changed, but he has changed. A lot of it has to do with, I've thought about this. As a barber for 3 decades in this beautiful city of Jacksonville, Florida, in all different kinds of neighborhoods. Of course, everybody know I come from the concrete jungle of Avenue B and 103rd Street. We all know that. And I had probably had the most fun and sharpened my tools to be able to run my mouth more than anything in those locations. And one thing that people do, man, is people will come up with something that they used to call it plate glass. And it's like, once you get a stigma put on you, they're going to keep it on you. And stigmas aren't always bad things. They're good things. So let's go to the good stigma. When Trevor Lawrence came out of high school, all you heard was super number one guy gets to Clemson as a freshman and beats Nick Saban in the national championship game because he was just letting it rip, right? And then all of the pressure and all of the monikers and all of the next Peyton Mannings, the next Tom Brady's, all of these things started popping up. At some point, it was the next Patrick Mahomes. And it was, all of those things. Joe Burrow had a lot of success early. A guy Trevor played against in the college football playoffs like a year before Trevor. Joe Burrow lit up the league. So it was always like comparing him to somebody else and then coming up with names like the prince that was promised. And I think so many people, they called him sunshine. They saw so many movies like Remember the Titans and all of that. They put Trevor in this mystic ride on a white horse, locks flowing, all of that stuff. And it just took on this, he's the heir to the throne type deal. And so that's a hard thing to live up to, especially when it might not be who you are if I cut your hair and give you a buzz cut. This is my experience as a barber blended with my experience with football. Sometimes we were able to change people's lives. A dude would come in, I mean, you wouldn't even see it. And an hour and 15 minutes later, after a cut, a shampoo, and another cut, the dude looks like something that's totally different. And under that it was hidden who he really, really was. You see it every day on the internet, before and after. You don't even recognize people. So this is not about a physical haircut as much as it is about how much did his hair and how much did the flowing locks and even the picture on my thumbnail. You notice the hair ain't blonde anymore, it's brown. How much is all of this symbolically? How much does that go along with changing how we feel about him? There's a dude that he actually reminds me of way more if you really watch him play, not watch and think about what you wanted him to be. And that's why we're going to talk about the way we watch Trevor. There's a dude he actually reminds me of. And it's not a apples to apples comparison because their body types aren't really quite the same. And their personalities aren't really the same. So as much as everybody wants to, make him, at some point wanted to make him all of those dudes I just mentioned, all of those great quarterbacks I just mentioned, Trevor's really more like Ben Roethlisberger than he's like anybody. Because he's gritty. If he didn't have that long hair and he had a buzz cut, we wouldn't sit here and talk about Trevor the way he was. He's not the first quarterback that they put in a box like that. They did it to Baker Mayfield because of one incident where he was in college. He was running from the police or somebody. I think it was a female cop, and he tripped and fell. And so they made Baker Mayfield, and then he made some comments in Cleveland. But if you put somebody who needs to mature in a situation like that back then, what do you think is going to happen? So finally, you see Baker Mayfield now. I see him with his wife and his dog, and they're taking pictures, sitting down with flowers, and he's the leader of that. So it's like that's not who he was. That's just who his representative was at that point. That's what we thought about him because of one or two things. This in case of Baker Mayfield, it was bad. In case of Trevor Lawrence, it was good because he had so much early success with his long blonde locks. And then we get to watch that transformation. And when we watch that transformation, if it's going from, whether it's going from good to bad or bad to good, folks have a sense. It's like watching somebody get a haircut. You have a sense of, some people want to hold on to that other thing. They want to hold on to him on that white horse. They want to hold on to him being the next Peyton Manning. They want to hold on to thinking that he's like a wine and cheese quarterback when really Trevor is from Georgia and wants to get downright, flat out dirty in these games. And it's working. And I think the reason why, when I caught a lot of flack for saying we got to change the way we expect and watch Trevor, is because I saw Trevor morphing into something that had nothing to do and didn't look anything like the player that everyone thought he was going to be when he came out of Clemson. And there was a lot of people that did not want to see that transformation instead of accepting it for what it is. So I'll tell you why the way we watch Trevor has changed, and what changes Trevor actually did make to start improving and being the player that he is. And we'll do that in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. All right, today's show is sponsored and brought to you by Mint Mobile. You know there's no reason to let big wireless drain your wallet, right? Especially during the holidays. Right now, Mint Mobile is running their best deal of the year. All of their unlimited plans are 50% off. That means you can lock in 3, 6, or even 12 months of unlimited premium wireless for just $15 a month. It's the easiest way to take your overpriced phone bill and give it the full Scrooge treatment. And what makes this even better is how simple Mint makes the switch. No contracts, no nonsense, just real savings and real quality service. Man, I've done this before with other places, and I've been in the phone store for 4 hours trying to get all of my stuff flipped over. You ain't got to worry about all of that nonsense. They'll do it quick, fast, and in a hurry. You need to turn your expensive wireless present into a huge wireless savings future by switching to Mint. Shop Mint unlimited plans at mintmobile.com/lockedonnfl. That's mintmobile.com/lockedonnfl. Limited time offer, upfront payment of $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12-month plan. Required, that's $15 a month equivalent. Taxes and fees, initial plan term only. Greater than 35 gigabytes may slow down when your network is busy. Capable device required. Availability, speed, and coverage varies. See mintmobile.com. All right, segment 2 here. Locked on Jaguars with your team every day. Make sure you guys look into the description wherever you watch or listen here, because got some big stuff for you, man. We've gone to a new horizon here with the Everydayer Club. If you miss an episode, it's time to make it official. Join the Locked On Everydayer Club and get ad-free audio, access to our members-only Discord, and more. It's $5 a month, man, and you also get access to exclusive coverage as well as access to our merch store. I wear my Locked On stuff, and a lot of people ask me where I got it from, so that's where it is. Look down and click on that link in the description. It's lockedonpodcasts.com/everydayer club. All right, man. We're talking about Trevor Lawrence. We're talking about I personally can see what somebody looks like without me cutting their hair. I can envision what they'll look like without. So I see past that. And I still got this habit. People, I'll tell y'all a quick story. We were at camp, and I got a chance to be one-on-one with Anthony Campanile. And I looked at him and I said, yeah, man, sharp grooming there. Whoever cut your hair did a good job. He looked at me sideways because he didn't know me. And I said, dude, I was a barber for 34 years. Plus, shout out to my man Silver that cuts his hair, because Silver and I never met, but we know of each other. And when I told him I was a barber, he was like, oh, man, yeah. And we were laughing about it. I said, yeah, man, you thought I was just going to stand here and just comment on your haircut. I still do that. I walk in everywhere and I look straight up at people's hair. It's just a habit. It's a habit because I still watch haircut videos online because I understand the transformation that can happen. I've had people call me, moms, wives call me after I cut guys' hair and say, I can't believe it. I cannot believe it. He looks like the person I remember. So what you see visually and what you could continually hear from people about who you are and what you are can have an effect on you. The biggest thing that's happened to Trevor is I think he stopped playing to live up to those expectations because they went out of the window anyway. I think Trevor stopped listening to that stuff, and I'm not saying he always did, but anybody that goes to Waffle House by himself and his wife and goes to that jukebox and probably orders an All-Star or whatever with raisin toast, yeah, he's one of us. Trevor Lawrence is more like you and me than anyone would have let on when this all first started. And so is Liam Cohen. And you know what happens when an organization brings in people that allow you to be truly who you are and gets rid of all of that fluff because they know who you are is good enough for them and whatever your superpower is. Have you heard that? Have you heard we're going to just go out and get people and come here and be nothing more than who you are? We can carve away all of this other stuff about expectations and carve away all of this stuff about what people think and carve away all of this stuff about Prince of the Promise and just let it rip. Have you heard that before? Yeah, you have. It's the difference between having an organization where they're not trying to fit you in a box. I'm going to go back and tell you what I mean. How about having Otto, Leo, and all of these people and then going out and just drafting people to just fit that? That's a mistake, right? How about just saying we're going to shuffle offense or defensive linemen in and out of the game to keep them fresh at the end of the game, no matter how good of a player they are, or the fact that situational football has our best players on the sideline. You remember that? They aren't asking these dudes to do anything that they don't expect them to do. And if you can't do it, they'll find somebody who can do it. It's not about being nice to the player, and it's not about making sure that you're right about the people that you chose. It's about winning. And Trevor Lawrence is kind of in I don't know why. I don't know if he dyed his hair, if he didn't dye it, if it's natural, but his hair looks darker. You know why? Because blonde hair represents pretty. Brown hair represents gritty. And Trevor Lawrence has transformed, whether he colored his hair or not. He has changed. And if he ever gets a buzz cut, y'all can best believe he's going to then look exactly like he's playing right now. Why am I making all this about grooming standards? I'm not making it about grooming standards. I'm using it as an example to tell you that sometimes when you try to portray what people look like, or sometimes when people look at you through the lens of what they think you should look like and play like because of their own imagination, when you don't do that, you disappoint them, and then they all of a sudden start thinking that somehow you failed, when the only thing that you've actually failed at doing is being the version of yourself that they think that you're supposed to be because of pre-existing expectations. Have I been critical? Yes. I've never said they need to get rid of it. I said in the old regime about him and Josh Allen, if this is the way that this is going to go for them here, they need to trade him. Yeah, I said it. Get whatever you can, because under that, it's not going to work. Under this, yeah, it does work. It absolutely does work. The way we watch him has transformed because we realized that the expectations that we all had on him may have been unfair. Not because they were high and it seemed like he was failing to meet them, but because it was high and he can still reach those heights. He's just not going to do it looking the way that you want it. Thus, the point that I made early this year when I say you need to re-examine how you look at Trevor Lawrence as a quarterback. He's not what you think he is. It doesn't mean he couldn't reach the same heights that we always thought he could reach. He just wasn't going to do it the way you thought he was going to do it. And the hardest people to convince are folks that hold on to this idea of what somebody looks and sounds like and what they're supposed to be like. It's very, very difficult to change people's mind when they get that in their mind. And that's what Trevor Lawrence has had to deal with. Do you know what he's turned into? You would have never thought that the first word that comes to mind when you think about Trevor is toughness and resilience. That, to me, is what I think of. I think of toughness and I think of resilience. To go along with arm talent. That sounds like Ben Roethlisberger to me. That doesn't sound like Peyton Manning and sound like Tom Brady. Not that those guys aren't tough or resilient, because obviously they are. You don't be a quarterback and go to the Hall of Fame and win multiple Super Bowls without having that in your repertoire. The thing is that's not what they lead with when you see them. It's not. That's what I think about with Trevor Lawrence. Now, you might think something differently. You might totally disagree with anything that I'm saying, and that's fine. We all have a different viewpoint and different lenses. I ain't going to argue with nobody about how they feel. But on Locked On Jaguars, I'm going to tell you how I feel. And I feel like some of this was on us with expectations. And you notice a lot of people that gave him those monikers and gave him all of these adjectives, they jumped off the bandwagon. They didn't jump off the bandwagon because he was an abstract failure. They jumped off the bandwagon because Trevor turned out not to be exactly what they described. And people want to be right more than they want the player to play right. And that's fine. There have been a lot of quarterbacks that have totally changed. I'll tell you one right now, Josh Allen. Ain't nobody they thought Josh Allen was a good athlete, but everybody talked about Josh Allen's arm. Nobody hardly spoke about Josh Allen's legs when he was coming out of Wyoming. Did they? They talked about the beautiful throws that he would make. And even though he was inaccurate as hell, but they said if he ever cleans that up and cleans up his mechanics, he'd be great. Nobody talked about him being compared to Cam Newton when it came to being a two-headed monster at quarterback, a dude that can beat you with his arm and his legs. Not one person thought about that. But here we are. He's exactly what no one said he was going to be. Happens all the time. Tell you why change is good. Just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. All right, today's show sponsored and brought to you by FanDuel NFL Sundays. They move real fast. One big play and suddenly everything feels different. That's why it's so much fun, and it makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. And the best thing about it is you know the game. You know before that play happens and before that announcer says anything, you can tell. You've been watching long enough. I know you have, especially if you listen to these shows. You know when the momentum changes. Try to beat it to the punch before those odds change, and it could get you some Skrilla put in your pocket because those live spreads and money lines are just really, really fast and instantaneously. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast. You better move fast. Game moves fast, and so can you. All right, we're moving and grooving here on Locked On Jaguars. Hump Day, middle of the week. You'll have a crossover tomorrow between the Jets and the Jaguars. We get to talk to my man John Butchko. They better, hey, look, man, I'm pretty positive that the Jaguars know what's at stake. I'm pretty positive that they are on a mission right now, but you still have to actually go out and play the game. Wanting to do it and thinking about it isn't enough. They actually have to go out and execute it. I think they will, but that is an NFL team that has some dangerous pieces and parts. You have to take them very seriously. So make sure you check that out on tomorrow. We're talking about why change is good, comparing it to haircuts and all of that stuff, and how people looked at Trevor Lawrence and why we've had to struggle. A lot of the struggle with Trevor has been, and I even put myself in this category, so I'm not totally immune to it because I didn't see this either. The difference is when I started to see him change into this dude that had this toughness, and these coaches were able to extract that. And now I see a dude that every single one of his teammates will run through a brick wall for him. And it's not because of the promise of his talent, but it's because of who he is and how he plays the game. I saw Trevor trip and get up and go get that touchdown against Kansas City. It almost was something that encapsulated his entire career and his entire transformation to me of who he could be and who he is and what he is. It's good. And sometimes it catches you by surprise. And that's the thing I like about it. The transformation of Trevor Lawrence has as much to do with how we watch him as opposed to what he's actually done. And I don't want to get so caught up in our differences of opinion about that, as opposed to paying attention to the fact that we got something. We got something here. This is why I always said I understood why they extended him. If you were around him with that talent, you would have extended him too. That's just the way it goes. Every team in the league, if the Jaguars a year ago would have said Trevor's on the market, would have given up 3 first-round picks for him if they needed a quarterback. That's just the way it goes. So you got to be careful sometimes that you don't dump the wrong cargo and they end up with a coach like Liam Cohen that knows how to extract stuff from people. Can't get mad at you can get mad at Trevor, and you can get mad at the old coaches. You can get mad at the old GM. You can get mad at everything. But sometimes everything isn't the problem. Sometimes the core issues are the problem. The core issues of the team. Those are the people that wanted to take up for every single thing that Trevor Lawrence ever did. Yeah, you were right. You were partially right anyway. You had a reason to sit here and say that he had subpar receivers. But a lot of those same people didn't want them to get rid of Evan Engram and Christian Kirk. I wonder where they are now. You ain't hearing nothing from them. Paying all of that money, paying almost $30 million for those two dudes. Where y'all at now? This is because the same people that thought it wasn't Trevor's fault, thought it wasn't those guys' fault, thought it wasn't Balky's fault. And some of it's overlapping, and some of it is everybody blaming every single thing It's the one thing that gets on your nerves the most is going to be the thing that you cling to when you have a problem. And we've said so many times, don't be going hunting for problems because you're going to get more than what you asked for. And then it's going to show that bias because you're going to cling to that one problem and you're not going to look at the big picture. Try to find solutions. My solution is, who's the most talented player on the team? Trevor Lawrence. What's the solution? Play better. That's all you can do. It's hard to play better now when you got stuff around you that's not allowing you to, especially in the coaching front. But then when that changes, see, it's his responsibility to just get better and play better. It's our responsibility to adjust to what we see. Just because it doesn't look like you thought it was supposed to look, don't mean he ain't playing better. This is the truth. And just because it doesn't look the way you thought it was going to look, when somebody tells you need to adjust your eyes and change your glasses and your eyewear because it ain't as bad as you think, but it's not what you think it is, that doesn't mean that that person is wrong. That person is me. That's all I kept saying. This looks totally different. So you reshuffle all of that stuff, and now there's not that much disagreement with a bunch of people. People still want disagreement because they're sitting here looking for the haters. I'm not looking for no problems, man. I'm looking for what ties us together. This ain't a ooh, I told you so moment. This is just, look, we saw this all transform all at one time, and a lot of us were wrong about what we thought it was, but some of us weren't wrong because we thought it was a bigger picture. When the bigger picture changes, and he had to change too. See, when you fix the roster and you fix the attitude and you fix the culture, it doesn't just include the 52 guys that you don't care for or the 42 guys you don't care for and not the 10. No, all of these dudes had to go through a car wash, including your favorite players. And there's nothing wrong with saying that. So now I think we have a version of Trevor Lawrence. I actually look forward to the experience every single weekend. I know it's a short sample, a small sample, but we have enough of a large sample for us to come to a conclusion that while it's not going to be perfect all the time, that's the difference. It's not going to be perfect. He's going to make a mistake every now and then. He'll make that one throw every now and then to make you go, damn, Trevor. But for the most part, you still have the overlying faith in him that no matter what happens, he's going to figure it out at some point by the end of the game, give you a chance to win. And those two things can exist simultaneously without us sitting here trying to figure out what is going on. I had just an example. I had dudes come in all the time that have different facial features. Dude says, I want this mustache. It's too thick, cut it thin. I said, no, you need to leave it thick. Why? Because you got big lips and a big nose. That's why. And you're going to look something. It's going to look way worse than you think it's going to look if you cut that little thin mustache. We need to hide those features. And I'm not talking about people with big lips and big noses because I have a big brown face, right? So that's why you always see me with wide facial hair or elevated or elongated hair on the top because it narrows my face. I ain't got no problem. You know, I could go in here thinking I'm Denzel to somebody and cut all my hair off, and then I'll be sitting up here looking like Webster. So I know what I got to do. Don't let your eyes fool you or your eyes deceive you. You got to accept things for what they are. This has been a podcast about barbering and about football. I hope at some point y'all got it. If you didn't get it, listen to it again. You'll catch it the next time. Make sure you catch Locked On NFL each and every day, man. Twice a day. I'm in the barbershop at about 2 o'clock every day in the afternoon, but my man Tyler Rowland wakes you up and we use clips from the local experts around the league to keep you abreast of what's going on because local experts have their finger on the pulse of the team. Watch out for that crossover episode tomorrow. Man, I so enjoyed this today. Putting two of my things I love more than anything, haircutting and barbering, in the same podcast. 29 minutes and 15 seconds is all I had, but it should be enough. We'll see you next time here on Locked On Jaguars.